All right, guys, I am not done talking about Pokemon just yet. I'm not done talking about Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen. I am not even a huge Pokemon fan. I hadn't played Pokemon in like 2 decades. I really, I think it was back in elementary when I had a Game Boy or whatever, and I would secretly play the Pokemon games whenever the teacher wasn't around, stuff like that. I'm not a big Pokemon fan. I did enjoy it when I played it back in elementary, but it's something that I kind of just grew out of really quickly. So I'm not a huge Pokemon fan, just so you guys know. But that being said, the $20 price tag for these games is cheap, okay? The only reason some idiot out there would have a big, fuss about this, it's because they're like looking way too deep into it and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is just a lazy port. All they did was port it to the Switch and therefore it should be $5 or less. It should be much cheaper than $20 because, well, they didn't really put any development time into that. And I'm gonna explain why that's really stupid, but literally yesterday after I had uploaded my video, the first video that popped up, that like recommended video to watch after my video stopped playing, was this video from a pretentious dumbass known as Game Domain. Game Domain, with this video, and as you can see in the thumbnail, it says flawed logic. He's basically saying that the people who are defending this game, they're using flawed logic. What's the flawed logic? Well, they're pointing out the fact that the only other way to get these games is to pay like $100 for each physical copy for your, Game Boy, and that's about it. So it's either that or just get it for $20 each on the eShop. And he's saying that's flawed logic. He's calling that flawed logic, and he can't get over that. Anyways, without further ado, let's listen to this idiot real quick and let's hear what he's got to say.
On the title, let me explain what I mean. I made a video a couple of days ago talking about the Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen prices and basically said, while I believe they are overpriced, I don't think we should shame people for thinking it's worth it or thinking it's too much since value is subjective. I even made a community poll asking if it's worth it, and as of the time of recording, it's basically 50-50, so it clearly is very pricey. There's clearly not one answer that everyone sees as...
He said he made a poll asking whether, it's overpriced, and it's 50-50. Now, actually, there's just a little bit more people saying that it's not overpriced. I think it's like 51-49, so it's like 51% of the people on that poll say that it's not overpriced, and then 49% are saying that it is.
Right. My personal view is that $20 for a basic port of a GBA game is overcharging. I went over that in the previous video, but I want to talk about something else here. Well,
It's not overcharging, but we'll get to that.
A lot of comments agreeing with me, and a lot of people fine with the $20 prices. A lot were still perfectly respectful and reasonable. I talked about some of the ridiculous arguments some Pokemon fans have made for pricing, like saying the original cartridges go for $150, so anything under that price is a steal, or since the game launched at $40 and it's $20 now, that means it's a great price. And I was seeing a lot of people passionately defend these takes, and I did touch on this other video as well, but I really think a lot of people are either being dense or legitimately just don't understand the issues with these. And it's pushing me to agree more with the Nintendo haters, because while I disagree with them on a lot, like obviously I'm not a Nintendo hater, since it is my favorite video game company, they've been more reasonable on the specific topic. And that's not to say that they...
So this fucking idiot is saying that the Nintendo haters are being more reasonable. No, they're not being reasonable, dumbass, because if you're crying about a game being $20, especially when it's a game that people were asking for years, how's that being reasonable? You're not being reasonable at that point at all.
Been completely reasonable on this, finding myself agreeing with more of them than the defenders of this because of some of the takes I've been seeing and because of some of the people who are just arguing for the sake of arguing on this. So my entire point of the other video was it's pointless to shame someone for buying something like this because value is subjective. If someone buys that, like, that's not something you should spend time arguing with them. I don't think there's a problem if you say it's your right if you want to buy it, but personally I think it's an issue because I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's an issue when it just becomes a shouting match and it's just coming down to personal opinion rather than facts. But both groups are emotional here, and when you get emotional, you lose a lot of rationality. But the defenders here seem to be a lot more emotional. I have to clarify, this is not everyone, and even if you agree with the $20 price tag, I'm not necessarily talking about you. I'm just talking about the reasons here that I feel are not sound arguments. So starting with the first argument that says this game being $20 is a steal because the going price is $150 on
All right, I had to skip a stupid ad as usual.
This game being $20 is a steal because the going price is $150 on eBay or wherever resellers are selling this. Not even arguing if $20 is a fair price or not, doesn't matter.
Why do they even have to argue it, dumbass? It just is. Since when has $20 suddenly become too fucking much? I mean, really. For a video game, especially one that is popular and so many people want to play, suddenly $20, yeah, I mean, is that even a fair price? Could we argue? Yeah, we shouldn't even have to argue that that's a fair price.
When we shut down this logic, supply and demand is very basic to understand on a surface level. An example is if Nintendo makes 100 physical copies of a special edition Pokemon game, there's going to be a lot of demand for that with little supply causing the price to go up. Since FireRed and LeafGreen haven't been in production for like 20 years and they're very popular, there's been less copies available for sale and a lot of people wanting to buy it, causing the prices to go up. People aren't paying $150 for the game itself. They're paying for the physical cartridge. You can get a replica cartridge for like $5 that plays the game, so clearly that's not what it's about. And of course, there's ways to get this game for free that I shouldn't have to talk about in this video. Now
that you shouldn't have to talk about because it's illegal. That's why. There's ways to get this game for free, which I shouldn't have to talk about. You don't want to talk about it because it's illegal, you fucking idiot. You're basically saying, oh, you could get the game for free. Well, you could steal it. Why not just be more honest and say, oh, well, you could actually steal the game. Let's think about how stupid this logic is. This fucking idiot wants to talk about flawed logic. He's saying because there's ways to illegally play the game, to steal it, that means that Nintendo should just be like, oh, well, we'll just give it for free. People are able to steal it. We might as well just give it away for free, right? I guess like Netflix, Hulu, all these other, streaming services, well, people are able to just, watch these movies for free. They're able to, illegally pirate these movies and watch them. So why not just make the movies free, right? Or just much cheaper? That's the logic that this idiot is using right now.
The other argument that since this game launched at $40 and it's half that now, that means it's a good deal. Once again, we don't need to actually agree on the price to argue this logic. Now, there was another argument I saw that I think perfectly shows how this whole conversation keeps getting twisted, and it came from someone I was replying to directly. At first, the point was pretty simple. He said if Pokemon LeafGreen is going for over $100 on eBay, then clearly the game hasn't depreciated in value. This was in response to me saying the game's depreciated in value over time. And on the surface, I get why that sounds convincing. If something used to be $40 and now people are paying $100 plus $150, it feels like it gained value. But that only works if you treat the physical resale market and digital pricing like they're the same thing, and they're just not. When I pointed out that those eBay prices are driven by scarcity and collectors, not the actual game itself, that's where the shift happened. Instead of sticking with that argument, we pivoted to saying digital games rarely go down in price, and Nintendo was just offering a legitimate way to play something people have wanted for years, and those are two completely different arguments. One is about whether a game has appreciated, and the other is about whether $20 is justified for a digital release. The problem is the original point falls apart once you separate physical and digital. Cartridges are expensive because there's a limited number of them. That's supply and demand. Digital copies have unlimited supply, so they don't follow that same logic. You can't...
All right, so this is pretty much his whole entire argument right here. It's a digital copy. They're not going to run out of supplies. Therefore, it should not be expensive. Or therefore, it shouldn't even, because it's not even expensive to begin with. $20 is not a lot. Because there's an unlimited supply of digital copies, it should be really cheap. That's basically the argument this stupid fool is making. I guess every game that is available on the eShop or whatever should be super dirt cheap because it's digital and they're not going to run out of digital copies or something. But this is the argument he's making, right? And it's a very stupid argument for many reasons. So he's saying, okay, the reason that FireRed and LeafGreen are expensive is because there's a very limited supply of them. There's not that many out there, and so that's why these, resellers are charging really high prices. Well, here's the problem with that, is every single game out there, every game from the Game Boy, GameCube, whatever, you name it, every old retro game out there, is every single one of those games out there that have limited supply on hand, being charged, $100 for. I'm sure there's a bunch of games out there that you could get for dirt cheap because they're not games that people want, that people care for. There might be a few people in the world who's like, oh yeah, I would like to get that game again. That one game that I thought was really fun. There's probably some games out there that people want, but it's not popular at all whatsoever. It probably has, very limited supply, but yet you could get it for dirt cheap. This is not the same thing because, you know, FireRed and LeafGreen are games that people have been wanting for a very long time. Okay? So this idiot's trying to say, well, the reason they're high on demand is because there's few physical cartridges. No, it's because of that, and it's because these are games that people have been wanting for a very long time. They're high in demand for that reason as well. You can't just act like, well, it's only because there's a limited supply. No, that's bullshit. That's obvious bullshit. All right? So that's a stupid argument. And his other argument being that, well, because all Nintendo did was port the game, they didn't do anything. They didn't put extra development time into it. All they did was port it to the eShop. It should be, you know, much cheaper than $20 just because they didn't put any development time into it. All right, here's what this fucking idiot fails to realize. Here's his biggest problem. Nintendo is a fucking business. They're not a fucking charity. They're a business. All right? Their job is to make money. Guess what? They're running a multi-billion-dollar company. You know how many fucking workers they have, game developers they have that they got to take care of, that they got to make sure are getting paid? They got a lot of workers right now. And, you know, because they're choosing to make as much profit as possible, we don't really see them laying off a lot of workers now, do we? We don't see them constantly shutting down studios, laying off workers, canceling video games the way PlayStation is doing. I mean, we got fucking PlayStation over here shutting down Blue Point Studios, laying off 70 workers, and a lot of people are outraged because they're like, what the hell? Like, this was a good studio. This was one of your best studios. If it wasn't for Blue Point Studios, you know, you would have had a really bad launch with the PlayStation 5. They did a great job of remaking games. All these other things, right? People on the internet are so quick to virtual signal and have this outrage whenever Xbox lays off thousands of workers, when PlayStation is laying off workers, shutting down studios. But none of you idiots ever thank Nintendo for not doing that. You never thank Nintendo. Why? Because, well, if you thank Nintendo, well, because you're hypocrites and you're stupid, but because, you know, if you thank Nintendo, you would have to thank them for, you would have to consider why it is that they don't have this problem. Why is it that Nintendo isn't laying off lots of workers, shutting down a bunch of studios the way PlayStation and Xbox does? Well, maybe it's because they're always maximizing their profits. They're always making a profit by all means necessary. How stupid would it be for Nintendo to make this game free just because it's a port? It's a port and it's very popular, but let's just make it free. So idiots like this guy doesn't fucking cry about it. Well, no, that's stupid because they have to take into consideration they're running a business. They got thousands of game developers that they need to keep in order to keep making video games. The more money they make, the more video games we're gonna get from them. So you know what? I'm not gonna, you know, sit here like a fucking idiot and cry about these games being $20 a piece, because it just makes sense that the more money they make, the better it's gonna be. The more games they're gonna make for me. The more games they're gonna be able to make for everybody else. And I don't have to worry about these video game developers out there working for Nintendo getting laid off because Nintendo's running low on money. No, Nintendo's making way more money than they're spending, and they need to continue doing that, and they need to continue to, you know, expand their profit margins. They had the highest profit margin out of Xbox, out of PlayStation. I think PlayStation's profit margin is like 5 or 4%. It's very low. And when your profit margins are that low, of course you're gonna shut down studios. Of course you're gonna lay off hundreds of workers. So that way, you know, you're not losing money. You don't start losing money and then shareholders freak out and start selling all of their shares, you know, and things just keep getting worse, right? Nintendo over here saying, okay, you know, Nintendo, I think, considers their developers. And you know what? We recently just saw that Nintendo, just recently, there's been websites talking about how out of all the places in the world to work for, well, at least in Japan, out of all the places to work for, in Japan, they're the number one. They were voted as like the best company to work for in Japan. Seems like Nintendo really cares about their workers. That's pretty good. Because you know what a greedy corporation does is they screw over their own employees. They screw over their own workers. Even when they're making really good profit, they pay them very little. They take very, very little care of them, you know? Nintendo, I don't know how much they pay their game developers, but hey, if they're being voted as the best company in Japan to work for, probably because they're paying their workers well, probably because they just do a really good job with their workers. Probably because they really care about them. People aren't saying the same thing for PlayStation or Microsoft or Xbox. So that's what really gets me about a lot of these stupid fools here on YouTube, these pretentious crybabies on social media who always want to break things down and be like, oh, here's why Nintendo is greedy for charging these prices. You're fucking stupid. You don't even take those people into consideration. Why do you not take the game developers into consideration? But then you'll fucking cry about some other big, game developers out there or publishers like PlayStation and Xbox laying them all off. So, if you want a really good reason as to why these games are $20 each and why that's a fair price, well, for one, it's because it's their fucking product. They made the game, all right? Not the people who are reselling it to your dumb ass for $100 a piece. They didn't do anything. All they did was buy the game, and now they're reselling it for a very high price. But you're not getting mad at them because, supply and demand. Supply and demand, But you're gonna get mad at Nintendo for being like, yeah, we made the game, we produced it, here you go. You could play it now for $20 each. You could get each version for $20, that adds up to $40, and there you go. You got the game, you own it, it's on your Switch console. But that's a problem, because you see it as just a cheap port. They didn't put any development time into making it. You know what? Doesn't fucking matter. They're a business. They have to make money. They have to make a profit. And it's their product. It's their product. They'll fucking sell it for however much they want to sell it. Your dumb ass doesn't get to sit there and be like, well, this is overpriced, and it's because, there's limited supply of digital copies. No, it doesn't matter. Their product. They get to make money. Their product, which happens to be valued by so many people, because so many people have been asking for this. If if there is a product that so many people want, you don't just fucking give it away for free. You don't give it to them for a very, very, low price, which in this case, $20 is a pretty low price. But a lot of you guys are expecting them to give it to you guys for $5. Like, I'm seeing people saying they should be $5. No, stupid, they should not be $5. They should not. So many people have been asking for these games for years, and now suddenly you want to tell them how cheap it should be. Something you desire so much, and you're going to have the audacity to say it should only be $5 or it should be free. Fuck you. Shut the fuck up. Go to fucking hell. All right. I'm glad Nintendo is being smart. I'm glad that they're choosing not to be too cheap with these games, because at the end of the day, I want them to keep making more money, so that way, whenever times do get tough, whenever they're not selling as many systems, games, whatever, they have enough money on hand to ensure that their workers are getting paid, so that nobody has to get laid off. I think that's something people need to think about when it comes to Nintendo's pricing and all of that. People, were crying about the Virtual Boy being $100. Oh, it's just you're just paying for the headgear or whatever. Again, they're running a business here. They got a lot of people to take care of, a lot of people who are making these games for us. So you need to take that into consideration. I don't know whether I should end the video here or listen to what more dumb shit this guy has to say. Let's listen here.
Use a collector-driven resale market to justify the price of something that has no scarcity. That connection just doesn't hold up at all. And then the new argument doesn't really fix that either. Saying digital games don't go down in price just isn't true if you look at the industry as a whole. Outside of Nintendo, older games are almost always cheaper, permanently reduced, or constantly on sale. That's just the norm when games get older. So what ends up happening is the conversation shifts away from the original claim instead of actually defending it. It's not even that this is some rare gotcha moment. This happens a lot in these discussions, and while I talk about one specific one, I've seen this all over the place, at least variations of it. Someone starts with a point that sounds strong, it gets challenged, and instead of reinforcing that, the argument changes into something else. Either you'll hear straw mans or the goalpost will be moved. But if you have to change the argument entirely...
Okay, this dumbass is going on a long fucking tangent about, oh, well, you know, strongmans, and if you have to do this with an argument, if you have to change the argument, whatever. He's just going down a fucking rabbit hole or whatever, just being stupid and overly technical. Bottom line is this: they can charge whatever the fuck they want for this video game that they made, they produce. Doesn't matter if it's just a lazy, cheap port or whatever, it's still $20 fucking at the end of the day. That is not asking for too much, especially for games that people have been asking for many years, apparently. Apparently, this is something, again, I'm not even a big Pokemon fan. This is something that I'm being told by other Pokemon fans and people who play these Gen 1 Pokemon games. And they're saying, we've been asking for this for ages. So it's like, okay, so people have been asking for this game for ages. They give it to you for a very cheap price of $20, but oh wait, no, it's just a port. It's just a lazy port. Therefore, it should be either $5 or free. Get the fuck out of here. It's their product. They get to charge whatever they want. It's their product. They made the damn thing. You guys aren't bitching about the people who simply bought these games when they first came out initially and are now reselling it for $100. But you're gonna get mad at the people who actually created the fucking game for reselling it to you for the very cheap price of $20 each. Unbelievable. The fucking stupidity is just unreal with these people. So yeah, that was Game Domain. That was his stupid ass video, and I even left a comment here as well. This was 17 hours ago, so basically I quoted him. I said, I find myself agreeing more with the Nintendo haters on this, and I basically say, because you're a fucking dumbass. Saying $20 is overpriced is bullshit when so many people were on the internet. So many people on the internet were excited for the damn games before the price was revealed. At the end of the day, it's Nintendo's job to make money, idiot, and if they make more money, they make more games with that money and can pay their workers and game developers. So everything I was just pretty much saying just now. Just because they can easily take these games and make them free to play as a free download on the eShop does not mean that's a smart thing to do, and it definitely isn't the right thing to do either. They have a damn business that they are trying to run here, and making things cheap or free isn't going to be good for long-term growth. So that's basically the comment that I left on his channel just 17 hours ago. So if you guys want to head over there and like my comment and maybe reply to it, that would be awesome. But yeah, basically, this is really fucking stupid. Here's my arguments. Again, I'm just going to reiterate my arguments. Their product, they get to charge whatever they want, and at the end of the day, they're running a business. They have to make sure they're making so much money that when things go bad, they'll have enough money to pay their workers, so that way their workers won't get laid off and will be without a job. That's something people need to start considering from now on. Shut the fuck up. Stop thinking about, you know, your precious $20 bill or whatever that you would rather spend on DoorDash. I don't, it just blows my mind. $20 apparently is something to be outraged over. Absolutely fucking stupid. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I want you all to let me know what you think about this pretentious clown and his takes or whatever. He's basically saying that the people defending this, you know, they're emotional and they're missing the point because, you know, they're not looking at all these other things that in the end don't really matter whatsoever. The only things that matter is, you know, what's good for business, what's good for the game developers and all of that. So with that being said, let me know what y'all think in the comments below. I will talk to y'all again as soon as possible. And with that being said, you guys take care.